Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/MaliciousCompliance. Let's start our video with a story in which the unprofessionalism of management cost them a lot of money. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Thousands of dollars turned to rocks. Important to note that I don't get yelled at work. Most people don't yell at someone with my body size and composition. Today we had trucks drop off some concrete and non-treated lumber for the building materials department. I work in this department. Both these categories of product cannot get wet. If they do, they can't be sold or must be sold at reduced price. The bundles of wood and pallets of concrete are unloaded shortly before I get to work and clock in the afternoon to work a closing shift. So I arrive and all this product's outside, which is normal. I check the weather and we have about 3 hours until rain is forecast. Okay, it'll be close, but I can get it done in the time frame. So I begin. I bring inside a few pallets while also helping customers. We're mildly understaffed today. Well, Mr. Manager says the pallets cannot be inside because they block the aisles. This is the issue. We don't have enough employees in my department to work product and help customers. He's correct about policy saying not to block the aisles, but we do this all the time so we can work together on product and help customers. Doing both is part of the job. I wanted a clear answer. My associates and I all want a clear answer. So 30 minutes into me working, it begins to absolutely downpour with crazy lightning, about 2 hours before it was forecast in the weather. So instead of all the product being inside, it was outside, so it wouldn't block the aisles. I normally wouldn't let this happen. I'd just bring it inside and take getting chewed out, but today I figured if I was going to get chewed out, I was going to get chewed out for following the rules. So product's outside and it's raining sideways. Manager now's not happy. The forklift is also outside and covered in rain only because he doesn't like it being inside. And half the lumber and concrete's already toast. He asked me why it was all outside in the rain. I reminded him about what he told me and also reminded him about the operating procedures that he was angry with me for not following the previous times I've blocked aisles with product to keep it out of the rain. At this point, 50% of the concrete bags are saturated through and begin to harden into just big rocks. And all the MDF and particle board is blistering and falling apart, so he gets to explain why the store had a couple $1,000s in markdowns today to his boss, and his boss likes me, so I doubt any of this will even come back to bite me. Feels good. Stupidity from management never fails to amaze me when it downpours to the employees. And our second story. Mom waited 5 years to get her revenge on my grandpa. This is a funny story my mom always likes to tell. Back in 1997, some days after my sister was born, my parents decided to visit my dad's hometown to show my grandparents their first grandchild coming from my dad. They were in love with the little girl. During the time my parents were there, Mom and Grandpa were left alone playing with my baby sister and talking to each other, and it went like this. Mom, she's so pretty, she looks like me. Grandpa, oh, don't worry about it, they grow out of it. This was obviously a joke, but my mother never forgot it. Then after 5 years, I was born, and again my parents went to visit my dad's hometown, this time showing baby me, and my grandpa absolutely loved me and said, "Oh my God, look at him, so handsome, he looks just like me." To which my mom, not losing the opportunity, replied, "Oh, don't worry, they grow out of it." They both laughed at it. My grandpa knew exactly what he said to her 5 years before and remarked on how she returned the favor to him. Just a little harmless fun revenge from my mother. Hope everyone reading this has a great day. Oh, that wasn't what I expected. Glad it was some cute banter between in-laws. And our last story. Up to this day, he thinks he taught me a lesson. In the late 90s of the last century, while I was still working at the international organization, things at the office deteriorated a bit. People were rotating in and out of the office, and my manager was one of them. The specimen that became my new manager was what my grandmother, with a knowing glance, would call special. Entitled and superior, according to himself, let's call him Frank. We did wholeheartedly agree on one thing, though, the dislike we had for each other. One of the tasks I'd assumed was head of protocol for my boss, the High Commissioner, HC. This basically means that I had to ensure that he was treated according to his station, with all rights and privileges awarded to him as an international dignitary. Oh, and I had to look solemn. Our office was working closely together with a number of NGOs on several issues. We would make policy, and they would implement on the ground with projects, etc. One of the NGOs was organizing a conference where we would connect policymakers with international legal experts. The objective being, international experts don't bite. Don't try to invent the wheel, call them. The director of said NGO visited us often. We got along like a house on fire, much to the annoyance of Frank, who thought I didn't know my station. So when HC was asked whether I could assist with the organization, HC agreed immediately. I'd built up somewhat of a reputation in that field, so it wasn't considered strange. So far, so good. I helped arranging the hotel, drivers, interpreters, liaised with various ministries and experts. The NGO got used to calling me all hours, weekdays and weekends, to check or discuss things. I didn't mind. I worked my proverbial butt off. We had rented conference rooms at a 5-star hotel in Vienna. The police would supply security, the airport would receive the guests, and all people would be staying in the same hotel. The only thing was, due to agenda restraints of various participants, the conference would start on Friday and end on Monday. Everybody assumed, me included, that I would be there. There was one detail I'd forgotten, to ask Frank's permission. I needed to have a form signed to authorize my travel, otherwise I wouldn't get paid for working, much less travel there. On a Monday morning, I walked into Frank's office and dropped the blank authorization form on his desk with as neutral a look as possible, trying to pass it off as an annoying detail. Sir, concerning the conference, could you sign the document for approval? I know it's a bother, but, please. He picked it up, looked at it, and holding it, checked something on his computer. This conference isn't organized by us, but the NGO? Correct, the boss is a guest. So the rooms and travel are paid for by the NGO? Correct. So you'll be a guest. You may go. I'll grant you the Friday and Monday as paid leave and nothing else. He filled in the authorization form, signed it, gave it to me, and gave this little wave that you use towards servants. That'll be all. You have to be effing kidding me. I stood up, kept my jaws as clenched as my fists, and walked out, fuming. Getting back to my office, I was met with one of the policy advisors who wanted to discuss the details of one of the meetings. I think I radiated an air of dejection because he asked me what was wrong. I told him, "You can't accept that." I shrugged. "There's not much I can do, he's my manager." As he stood up, he said, "Well, we'll see about that." I went about my day and managed to push it to the back of my mind. A few days later, I was called into the HC's office. Sitting behind his desk with papers piled up in great stacks, he never learned computer, he was talking with the director of the NGO who was sitting opposite of him. They seemed very relaxed. HC looked at me and smiled. "Ah, have a seat. I gather you'll be working with us in your spare time." I nodded. "Yeah, Frank didn't give me authorization." "Well, correct, and I will not change one iota as he's your manager. I have to respect his decisions regarding his own staff, otherwise I'll undermine his authority, and I can't have that. I'm sorry, but my hands are tied. The authorization stays unchanged. It's a bit of a conundrum, really, as I gather you're working day and night on this." I nodded again and wondered why they called me in to state the bleeding obvious. In the silence that followed, the director let out a chuckle, and the HC started smiling. He grabbed a form off his desk and looked at it. What followed next was one of the most astonishing monologues I'd ever heard. Not because of eloquence, but because of implications. "So we had ordered you a plane ticket, but we've just decided that we need you to bring some supplies. So you'll be going with your own car and will be reimbursed a first-class train ticket with sleeping quarters. As the supplies you'll have to bring take up some space, we've decided that your room will be upgraded to a suite. Can't have you tripping over everything, now can we? Oh, and I understand it's quite heavy, probably too much for you to carry alone. Would your girlfriend be available that weekend to assist you in carrying the supplies? We'll reimburse her travel and stay, on the same conditions, of course. Furthermore, you'll get a per diem for 4 days. And as you'll be working during the weekend and 2 days of your leave, your salary will of course be increased. Leave days and Saturday 150% and Sunday 200%. Now, where do I sign? Oh, and tell your girlfriend that I'll be looking forward to hosting her at my table for the first evening." The director now burst out laughing. After a couple of seconds, he composed himself and added, "Oh, and as you're consulting for us as well on those days, we'll pay you a consultancy fee as well. Of course. Not a large one, but an administrative fee should do. Listening to this, I had to process what that meant. I would be reimbursed more than an entire month's salary for 4 days. But won't Frank protest? I mean, I don't want to get in trouble over this. HC looked at me and tried to look as innocent as possible. As far as I'm aware, I've completely respected his authorization form, so I'm not undermining his authority in any way. I've just added a new one to it. Continued with a smile that I can only describe as slightly evil. What we discussed here falls under confidential information. You're not aware of this conversation, and I've forgotten I've signed this document. I nodded. In the environment I worked in, you quickly learned to have no active memory of a lot of things. I stood up, walked to the door, and suddenly something hit me. What supplies do I have to transport? The director randomly picked up a slender folder marked Conference with at most 10 pages, reached out and gave it to me. Thought you'd never ask. This. Don't drop it, I understand it's heavy. My girlfriend and I had a lovely time, and as she was from Vienna, she was positively radiating, inviting her friends for coffee or drinks at a 5-star hotel suite. Oh, and Frank? He never found out, and up to this day, he thinks he taught me a lesson. Oh my God, that's priceless. I love bosses like that. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.